In a bold reaffirmation of its manufacturing ambitions, China is solidifying its stance on advanced manufacturing, a move that could place it on a collision course with the United States. President Xi Jinping has underscored the importance of a manufacturing-led growth model during a recent visit to the northern province of Henan. This strategy, long criticized by the US and other global trade partners, is seen as a catalyst for deepening trade imbalances. She declared self-reliance and advanced manufacturing to be the backbone of China's economy, emphasizing that this approach is the right path for the nation's future. According to the World Bank, the manufacturing sector accounted for over 25% of China's GDP in 2023, reflecting its critical role in the nation's economic framework. However, as China continues to pursue its goal of becoming a leader in high-tech manufacturing, spanning electric vehicles, commercial aircraft, and semiconductors, experts warn that this could clash sharply with the objectives of the Trump administration, which seeks to address trade imbalances and curtail state subsidies that distort competition. Alan von Maron, a China economist at Danske Bank, expressed skepticism about the possibility of significant concessions from China. "I'm not too optimistic on a big deal between the US and China," he said, predicting that US tariffs on Chinese goods are likely to remain high. The contentious backdrop is further complicated by China's Made in China 2025 initiative, which aims to elevate the nation to the forefront of advanced manufacturing, a goal that has seen substantial state investment yet has also faced challenges, including missed targets in several key sectors. Tensions between the two economic giants are not limited to manufacturing alone. The US administration has taken a harder line recently, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressing cautious optimism about achieving a middle ground. "We need more manufacturing, they need more consumption," he stated, suggesting a potential avenue for rebalancing trade. However, analysts foresee substantial hurdles, with the trade deficit between the two nations unlikely to narrow significantly. Moreover, China's industrial expansion is raising alarms beyond US borders, as Chinese manufacturers seek alternative markets to compensate for losses in the US. European countries are becoming increasingly wary. Nick Morrow, an economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit, indicated that the EU-China trade relationship is set for increased scrutiny. "By the end of this year, it's not just US-China tensions that we need to watch, it's going to increasingly be EU-China tensions," he noted. The ramifications of these dynamics extend to developing nations, where China's dominance in low-end manufacturing threatens local industries. Countries like India and Vietnam have begun to implement protective measures to shield their markets from Chinese competition. Leah Fahey, an economist at Capital Economics, pointed out that while this presents challenges, it could also provide some relief for inflationary pressures in countries struggling with local manufacturing capabilities. As the global landscape shifts, calls for China to pivot towards a consumption-led economic model have intensified. Yet progress in this direction is expected to be slow. Louise Liu, lead economist at Oxford Economics, forecasted that consumption may only account for half of China's economy by mid-century, lagging significantly behind the US benchmark of 70%. In the context of these trade tensions, the Trump administration's recent decision to revoke visas for Chinese students linked to the Communist Party has further strained relations. This move, announced by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, reflects a broader skepticism towards China as U.S. lawmakers increasingly view the nation as a significant threat to American security. The response from Beijing has been muted, suggesting a desire to avoid exacerbating an already fragile relationship. As both nations navigate these complex issues, the future remains uncertain. China's continued push for advanced manufacturing and the U.S.'s efforts to contain this growth will likely define their economic relationship for years to come. With strategic decoupling on the horizon, the potential for a transformative shift in global trade dynamics is palpable, leading observers to wonder how these developments will unfold in the coming months and years. In a striking escalation of tensions between the United States and China's Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced a significant crackdown on Chinese students studying in the U.S. The move which is part of the Trump administration's broader policy to tighten immigration and visa regulations, includes plans to aggressively revoke the visas of Chinese students, particularly targeting those with ties to the Chinese Communist Party and those enrolled in critical fields of study. This announcement comes at a time when U.S.-China relations are already strained primarily due to ongoing trade disputes and geopolitical rivalries. Rubio's statement delivered on May 28, 2025 indicated that the State Department would enhance scrutiny of future visa applications from Chinese nationals, including those from Hong Kong. While the specifics of what constitutes a critical field remain vague, it is widely understood to encompass disciplines like physical sciences and engineering, areas that have raised concerns within the U.S. regarding intellectual property theft and national security. The revocation of visas, according to Rubio, will target approximately 275,000 Chinese students currently enrolled in American universities. The implications of this policy are significant not only for the students affected but also for the American educational institutions that rely heavily on international tuition fees. In 2024, nearly 20% of all student visas issued in the U.S. were granted to Chinese students, highlighting their substantial contribution to the academic ecosystem. Critics of the policy, including Michael S. Roth, president of Wesleyan University, have described it as terribly misguided and warned that such actions could undermine America's leadership in science and technology. Furthermore, the potential for retaliation from China looms large. Historically, Chinese officials have expressed a willingness to reciprocate actions targeting their students abroad. Following the Trump administration's earlier moves to limit visas for Chinese scholars with links to military institutions, China has sought to stabilize relations through calls for increased educational exchanges. This latest announcement, however, signals a departure from those diplomatic efforts, creating an environment of uncertainty for both American and Chinese students. The broader context of this crackdown intersects with the Trump administration's ongoing trade war with China, which has seen tariffs imposed on a wide range of Chinese goods. This visa strategy appears to be part of a larger narrative that positions China as a strategic adversary, further complicating the already tense diplomatic landscape. As the Trump administration intensifies its scrutiny of international students, it remains to be seen how quickly these changes will be implemented and what the precise impact will be on American universities. The recent revocation of Harvard University's certification to enroll foreign students, although temporarily blocked by a federal judge, foreshadows a tightening grip on institutions perceived to be in collusion with the Chinese government. The international student landscape is shifting, with reports indicating a 4% decline in Chinese student enrollment in the U.S. for the 2023-24 academic year, contrasting with a 23% increase in Indian students during the same period. This trend may reflect the growing apprehensions among Chinese students about their future in the U.S. alongside the allure of opportunities back home. In response to Rubio's announcement, the Chinese public's reaction has been mixed, with some expressing resignation and others celebrating the notion that disillusioned students might return to contribute to their home country's development. This sentiment underscores a potential shift in how Chinese citizens perceive the United States, which was once viewed as a land of opportunity. As this situation unfolds, the future of U.S.-China relations and the fate of international students in American institutions remain uncertain. The Trump administration's policies could reshape the landscape of higher education and research collaboration, challenging the very foundations of America's historical openness to global talent. The next steps taken by both the U.S. and Chinese governments will be critical in determining how this complex issue evolves in the coming months. In a landscape increasingly characterized by geopolitical tensions and trade frictions, China is steadfastly pursuing its ambition to strengthen its advanced manufacturing sector. This strategic focus, underscored by a recent reaffirmation from President Xi Jinping, not only aims to enhance China's economic standing but may also escalate existing frictions with the United States, particularly under the leadership of former President Donald Trump. During a visit to a state-owned ball bearing factory in Henan last week, she declared that self-reliance in advanced manufacturing is the right path for China. reinforcing the notion that such a model is the backbone of the economy. This emphasis on manufacturing is evident in the sector's contribution of over 25% to China's GDP in 2023, according to the World Bank. However, experts suggest that this manufacturing-led growth strategy poses significant challenges to ongoing trade negotiations with the Trump administration, which has long criticized China's practices for contributing to global trade imbalances. Trump's administration has focused on reducing trade deficits and has consistently condemned China's extensive state subsidies to local companies, which are perceived to distort fair competition. Despite these pressures, analysts such as Alan von Marin, a China economist at Danske Bank, believe that there is little scope for China to alter its manufacturing strategy, especially as it is closely linked to its goal of self-sufficiency, particularly in high-tech sectors. The Made in China 2025 initiative, launched in 2015, aims to transform the nation into a leader in high-end manufacturing, encompassing industries from electric vehicles to semiconductors and robotics. However, the push for advanced manufacturing has not come without setbacks. A 2022 report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies indicated that China fell short of several targets set in this ambitious 10-year plan, exacerbating industrial competition and heightening global trade tensions. Amid these developments, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed a hopeful outlook for rebalancing trade, noting the mutual benefits of increased manufacturing in the U.S. and consumption in China. However, analysts from Nomura predict that the trade deficit with China is unlikely to narrow significantly, as Beijing is expected to reduce its reliance on imports from the U.S. This shift, they argue, may lead American manufacturers to take years to relocate production and seek alternative markets. The resulting surplus of Chinese goods could provoke backlash in global markets, particularly in Europe, which is already expressing concern over potential trade barriers. As China intensifies its industrial push, non-US markets are beginning to feel the effects, as demonstrated by the recent actions of toy manufacturers in EU who altered their products to cater to European consumers amidst shifting trade dynamics. Nick Morrow, an economist at the Economist Intelligence Unit, cautioned that tensions between China and the European Union could escalate, potentially impacting a broad array of products beyond just electric vehicles. The recent summits between Chinese and European leaders, including phone calls between Xi and French President Emmanuel Macron, indicate a deliberate effort to strengthen economic ties and cooperation, particularly in light of U.S. tariff threats. Macron emphasized France's willingness to foster economic relationships with China, suggesting that both sides view collaboration as a means to counterbalance U.S. unilateralism. While China's manufacturing ambitions continue to provoke international scrutiny, the country's leaders are adamant that this strategy is essential for its economic future. Economists, however, argue for a transition toward a consumption-driven model to alleviate deflationary pressures within the economy. Recent data showing a slowdown in retail sales growth further underscores the challenges facing China's domestic market. Looking ahead, the interplay between China's manufacturing ambitions and the global trade environment will undoubtedly shape economic relations moving forward. As China continues to grapple with its industrial strategy and the need for greater domestic consumption, the potential for trade conflicts, particularly with the US and EU, remains a critical issue. The coming months will be telling as both sides navigate this complex economic landscape, seeking to balance growth ambitions with the realities of international trade dynamics. In a significant move aimed at bolstering military innovation, Chinese President Xi Jinping has signed an order to implement new regulations for awarding military scientific research. This development, announced on May 29, 2025, is part of China's broader strategy to enhance its armed forces through advancements in science and technology, reflecting the leadership's commitment to modernizing the military in an increasingly competitive global environment. The regulations, set to take effect on July 1, establish a structured award system that aligns with both national and military strategic objectives. One of the cornerstone features is the prioritization of combat effectiveness, which will serve as the exclusive criterion for evaluating research outcomes. This focus is intended to refine the nomination and review processes for awards while enhancing oversight on discipline and confidentiality within military research initiatives. According to official sources, these changes are expected to invigorate the innovation landscape in military research and expedite breakthroughs in defense technology, ultimately providing high-quality scientific support for the establishment of a formidable military apparatus. This latest regulatory framework emerges amidst growing concerns regarding the military capabilities of China and its strategic partnerships. Recently, Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service reported that China has been supplying critical materials such as special chemicals and gunpowder to Russian military factories. As tensions escalate in Ukraine, the intelligence suggests that approximately 80% of the essential electronic components used in Russian drones are sourced from China. This revelation underscores China's dual role as a potential mediator in the conflict while simultaneously being criticized for enabling Russian military capabilities through its supply chain. During a recent visit to Moscow, Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral ties, particularly in response to perceived Western aggression. The two nations have pledged to cooperate more closely to counteract what they describe as the dual containment strategy employed by the United States and its allies. This partnership not only encompasses military collaboration but also extends to broader economic and geopolitical objectives, potentially reshaping the balance of power in the region. While these developments raise questions about China's intentions and the implications for global security, they also highlight the intricate dynamics of defense and technological innovation within the context of military strategy. As China continues to invest heavily in its military capabilities, the interplay of innovation and collaboration will be critical to its aspirations of establishing a strong military presence in the international arena. Looking ahead, the new regulations on military scientific research awards may serve as a catalyst for enhanced military innovation, but they also come at a time of heightened scrutiny regarding China's role in global conflicts. As the international community closely monitors these developments, the impacts of these regulatory changes alongside China's ongoing partnerships will likely play a pivotal role in shaping future military strategies and international relations. The ongoing evolution of military capabilities, particularly in the context of technological advancements and strategic partnerships, suggests that the global landscape may witness significant transformations in the years to come. In a significant move that underscores China's intentions in the Pacific region, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently announced a substantial commitment of support for Pacific Island nations to combat climate change during a summit held in Xiamen. The announcement marks a pivotal moment as it aligns with China's broader strategy of increasing its influence through infrastructure investments, often referred to as debt trap diplomacy. This approach has been criticized for potentially ensnaring developing countries in unsustainable debt burdens while ostensibly offering financial aid. Wang Yi stated that China would undertake 100 small but beautiful projects across Pacific Island countries with ties to Beijing over the next 3 years. He emphasized that this initiative is part of Chinese President Xi Jinping's flagship Belt and Road Initiative (BRA), which aims to create economic opportunities in developing regions but has also drawn scrutiny for fostering dependency. China fully recognizes the vulnerability of the economic and social development of the Pacific Island countries in the face of the climate change crisis, Wang remarked, highlighting the urgency of the climate situation in the region. Additionally, Beijing's pledge includes an investment of $2 million targeting various sectors such as clean energy, fisheries, and tourism. This investment comes at a time when China's economic growth is slowing, leading to a notable downturn in its international lending practices. The announcement of these initiatives has raised concerns among observers who fear that the financial support offered to these nations may lead to long-term debt obligations. Critics argue that this model can leave smaller nations reliant on Chinese capital and susceptible to political influence from Beijing. This renewed engagement with Pacific Island countries occurs against a backdrop of stagnated U.S. aid programs which have faced significant cuts and rising tariffs imposed by Washington on several of these nations. As the geopolitical landscape continues to shift, the implications of China's investments could reshape the balance of power in the region, particularly as local governments navigate their relationships with both US and Chinese interests. In a related development, the recent ASEAN summit has spotlighted the region's growing diplomatic and economic clout. Analysts noted that the summit facilitated breakthroughs in partnerships not only among ASEAN nations but also with the Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) and China, suggesting a strategic pivot towards greater regional collaboration amidst global uncertainty. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim highlighted the importance of a united ASEAN front, particularly in light of challenges posed by the US-China trade tensions. The summit included significant discussions on the ASEAN-GCC-China partnership, reinforcing the notion that ASEAN is positioning itself as a vital bridge between powers in the Indo-Pacific. The adoption of the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on ASEAN 2045 proposed a forward-looking agenda for regional cooperation focusing on inclusivity and sustainability. As part of this initiative, the formal admission of Timor-Leste into ASEAN as its 11th member was also announced, signifying the bloc's commitment to openness and integration. While these developments illustrate ASEAN's ambition to enhance its collective economic strength, challenges remain. The region must navigate contentious issues such as the Myanmar crisis with a coherent strategy that translates diplomatic declarations into actionable policies. As ASEAN continues to evolve, its ability to present a united front will be crucial in addressing global economic challenges and maintaining regional stability. The intersection of China's initiatives in the Pacific and ASEAN's strategic maneuvers reflects a broader narrative of geopolitical competition where economic partnerships are increasingly intertwined with national interests and security considerations. As these dynamics unfold, the future will reveal whether these alliances can withstand external pressures and lead to sustainable development, or if they will succumb to the pitfalls of dependency and conflict.